Oh, welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here, George.
Hey, Ron.
Glad to be here. And we've also got Carlos Sampson, John Forrest, helping us put this show together. And we're going to take a deep dive into perhaps the most famous, one of the handful of most famous UFO incidents in this nation's history, and some new evidence concerning it, and that deals with vanishing stars. Thus the title. So, to set this up, George, let's go back to shall we go back to this weekend, 1952, 74 years ago, what happened over the nation's capital?
We're kind of right in the sweet spot right now, in between two key weekends at the time we're recording this, from 1952. 74 years ago, the United States was in the middle of what people then called a UFO flap, a flying saucer flap, a wave, if you would. The first big wave was 1947. That's when the modern UFO era began. And you've had, there are always hundreds of UFO incidents every year. But in 1952, it was a huge wave. It was twice as many reported UFO cases in that year as had been the previous year. And so there was a lot of public interest. There was media interest. And it culminated. The two most dramatic incidents in that whole big wave occurred over Washington, D.C. You hear the old axiom that I'm not going to believe in UFOs until one lands on the White House lawn. Well, it didn't land on the lawn, but it flew over the White House and over Congress, over Washington, D.C., the most protected airspace in the world at that time. These things were multiple objects both times. July 19th, I think, was the first weekend. They had air traffic controllers at two different airports that picked up these mystery objects. There were commercial pilots that saw them in the air. There were multiple witnesses on the ground that saw these things moving through the air. And jets were scrambled as well. I mean, there was a lot of different types of evidence that said these things are real. That was the first weekend, July 19th. And the Air Force and the military and the government tried the things that they've always done before and even now, is explain it all away. It's no big deal. I think they called it a temperature inversion. Well, the UFOs didn't get the memo. And they came back the next weekend as well. Yeah. And there were more of them and more witnesses and more solid objects. And then after that, after those 2 weekends, those dramatic demonstrations of sort, the Air Force's chief intelligence officer held this news conference. And it was the biggest news conference in the country up to that date.
Here's General Sanford. In fact, we've got some of that. It runs about 2-3 minutes long, but this is him. It sounds eerily similar to 1947 in Roswell. You're going to recognize discounting.
And eerily similar to what we hear from our government now.
Oh, today.
No big deal.
Good point.
Most of them are explainable. It's no big deal.
It's worth taking a look back at this from that summer, from July of 1952. Here's General Sanford.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. we have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any department of the United States.
Well, that settles that. We've got our answer. That's all we need to know. John Samford, from the director of NSA, National Security Agency.
Well, he was the chief of Air Force intelligence in those days. So, and you know, it's a big deal for him to come forward and have this news conference. And you didn't get a whole lot of information other than it's not us. It's not our secret projects, which, you know, we've had some of that kind of stuff in the recent past here. We don't think the Tic Tac is ours, for example, but you know, always leave that sort of open. What he started with is we have 1,000 to 2,000 reports that we've analyzed. Well, you know, that's a pretty big gap. How many is it? 1,500, 16? By that point, 1952, the U.S. government had already had two formal UFO investigation programs. One was called Project Sign, and they had several hundred cases that they analyzed. And unfortunately, at the end of that, as the report was written to send up the chain of command, the staffers who had worked on it said, we think these things might be interplanetary. And it goes to the desk of General Hoyt Vandenberg, chief of the Air Force at the time. He says, I'm not signing that.
No.
We're not going to say this. And so that was the end of Project Sign. Then they started something called Project Grudge, which I think was appropriately named. And they got, the people who worked on Grudge got the message from up above, we're not going to say it's interplanetary. We're just going to say we don't know what it is. And then by the time of 1952, and this flap happened, Project Blue Book, which was largely a PR effort. But the head of Project Blue Book just happened to be in Washington, D.C. when these things happened. So he got sort of a firsthand look.
No, and it's interesting now, bringing it up to where we are at today, more evidence talking about what happened in 1952. Beatriz Villarreal is the person involved now that we're going to go with, the Vanishing Stars. Fascinating lady, which she talks about how she has taken these plates from before 1950. She had no knowledge of what had happened in 52. Plates showing stars in existence pre-1952, comparing them with plates shortly thereafter, and finds something missing, vanishing stars. Did I explain that well enough? But you've got a better explanation. Yes.
Well, Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, PhD, astronomer from Sweden, like a lot of astronomers around the world, is curious about life elsewhere in the universe. And she figures, well, look, if we send out probes into outer space, maybe some other more advanced, older civilization has done it to us. Let's start looking for alien artifacts. And, you know, a lot of folks have proposed doing something like that. She actually did it. I first met her in 2023 when I was working on this series for Netflix, and got to interview her. And I thought she was very brave. I mean, she knew she was going to take a lot of crap after coming out with this theory of what her findings were. But in this conversation that we recorded some months ago with her, she explains what was the start of it, why it was worth going ahead and taking a stab to see if there's evidence in the skies, in photographic records of any kind of objects that were from somewhere else.
And here she is talking about the possibility of probes from other planets.
Talk about the bigger idea of extraterrestrial probes. We, as humans, you know, our limited experience with sending objects out into the cosmos, we send not people but robotic satellites to explore outer planets, some of which have left our solar system. Would it make sense for some other civilization way out there to do the same thing and send probes to sit above the Earth and keep an eye on us? Crazy humans.
Absolutely. And imagine if they are wealthy enough and advanced, maybe they will not send one Voyager or something like that. They might send much more advanced robots or AI-equipped probes. And maybe they will send tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And they will be watching us and gather the data. And there's nothing impossible about that idea. I mean, it must be a super interesting project for them to study us. It's like entertainment, even. Like, let's see how far they get before they extinguish themselves. Maybe they're wondering that. Well, that's not so entertaining for us, but who knows?
How entertaining are we? Maybe we are. Just
endlessly. We're like the cosmic drive-in movie theater, all the crazy stuff that we do.
But we're going to show you. Okay, we're going to take a break here, George. We got more from her. We're going to put that connection together between 1952, what Beatriz found, and show you some pictures of what, I don't know, a mystery, vanishing stars mystery is what we're calling this. Back with more in a moment. Okay, now we get into the connection between what happened in 1952 over the White House and these vanishing stars and the mystery here. Let's pop up some pictures, George, of what we're talking about with Beatriz and what she saw and didn't see. Okay, the picture on the left, early 50s. She's seen. You see where the circle is in the center there.
Looks like a star.
Looks like stars there, and then the plates from sometimes a short time later. They're missing.
Yes.
In the same spot in the sky.
Yes. And there's nothing obscuring them. It's not a cloud. You know, this was what Dr. Villarroel, the brilliance of her approach was to search these old photographic plates of the sky, taken at places by the Harvard Observatory, by the Palomar Observatory, comparing those plates to a period of time not that much different from, weeks, months earlier. What looks like a star to us, if you were looking from the ground up in the sky, these shiny objects, they look like a star, but suddenly they're gone. And so she started scouring tens of thousands of these photographic plates to look for cases just like this. There's another one.
Another example of that same spot in the sky with a different look.
And it just so happened that she's found some from this date we're talking about that were directly correlated to the exact same time that Washington, D.C. was subjugated to what was some called a UFO invasion.
And she was not aware of what happened in 1952 over D.C.
No, she was not aware.
She's not looking for that.
The plates she found that coincided with these dates, she didn't realize that there were this famous UFO case, FLAP, at the same period that these things were there and then they were gone.
How did she find out? Did you mention?
I think one of her research assistants is the one who brought it up, but no, that wasn't me.
No, I'm wondering. No. Okay, so a researcher says, wait a second, on this timing here coincides with what happened in D.C.
Yeah. But the first time I read about her work, I thought, holy crap, that's the same time as the July 52 flap over D.C. So, yeah, the timing is more than coincidental, I think. And we can hear from her.
Here she is. Yes.
I remember the first time I was reading about your work, and I saw the dates of these key events. And what jumped out at me immediately was about July 1952. I thought, holy crap, July 1952 was a very significant time. And you have some vanishing stars that coincided almost directly with these dates.
Two of them.
Two of them.
One from each weekend, and both of them were found without that I ever had heard about the Washington flap. So one was found by my colleague Enrique Solano, who is, by the way, not at all excited about UFOs. So he just has to bear with me. So, but he found this beautiful triple transient through his automated searches. And the other example, this 5 along a line, we also found together while I was looking for these alignments. And we first had actually posted the paper in archive. And then only after that we had posted it, like 1 year after, I went back and looked at it, and I looked at the dates, and I realized, oh my God, this is also from the Washington flap.
Okay, and it's important to note here, this is pre-Sputnik. So before Russian satellites had been put into space, or we had put any satellites into space, she's seeing these anomalies happen in the sky. What's the explanation? What do you think?
Don't know. I mean,
stars don't disappear.
She's had a lot of criticism since that first paper came out and taken a lot of guff. Astronomers who don't want this to be true, who have found all kinds of other factors that could explain this. But so far, nobody's come up with one. I mean, that looks like a star, and then it's gone. It's interesting that the Harvard astronomical facility there that really had this gigantic collection of photographic plates of the sky, the guy who was in charge of that Harvard astronomy department, Dr. Donald Menzel, started wiping these things out. It's not explained why he started getting rid of all these things, but it was learned decades later that he had this top secret security clearance and had been working to not only debunk UFOs in public, but privately to study them and to work with these agencies that were trying to belittle the entire topic. General Samford, we heard his news conference. You got a feel for the guy in a sense that there's the Air Force. To a hammer, everything looks like a nail. They've been looking at this subject not as scientists, but as a defense organization, and they're trying to figure out, is it a threat? And so far, they couldn't really see it as a threat. And they didn't, as he said in that news conference, he didn't really know, there's no real pattern here. We don't know where to take it. And you feel for that. When you have people like Dr. Villarroel, who are scientists and are looking at the data, you got to kind of encourage them to go ahead and go forward. And what she said was highly controversial. She thinks that these objects are not self-illuminated, that what we're seeing is light from the sun, that it's glinting off a metallic surface that allows, it looks like a star from here, but it's really much closer to Earth than stars would be, obviously.
And you can't tell distance and perspective as easily, certainly, as you can with the objects, because you don't know the size, and you got to do some equations to figure that out. And let's go back to the 1952. You talk about it, to excuse him at that time. We were in the middle of a Cold War. We're just starting pretty much a Cold War, but we were deep into it in that sense. And they didn't want to acknowledge that we couldn't figure out what a threat was, no matter where it was from, whether it was extraterrestrial or whether it was earthly. They certainly did not want to do that. We don't have that excuse now, today, certainly.
But they still say that. They still say the same thing.
Yes.
We don't have that excuse, but we still say the same thing, or people in the government say it. 1952, that flap, that was amazing. I mean, I guess you can't call it an absolute threat that flew over Washington and over the White House, but didn't bomb Washington, didn't attack it with laser beams or anything like that. I do feel for the Air Force in the sense that, hey, it's not our job to solve scientific mysteries. We're trying to protect the public, and they didn't really know where to go. Well, I think that's still true to some extent. You need a scientific investigation, some of which is underway now. But you also need access to the best information, the best evidence, and that is now and has always been in the hands of the military and the intelligence apparatus.
Okay, and what her thoughts are that Dr. Villarreal is that this is something that is perhaps extraterrestrial. Does she believe? Was she out looking for aliens? Let me go there. When she started on this project, was she, I'll say a believer for lack of a better phrase, but was she looking to find evidence of aliens?
No, not necessarily. I mean, that was one option that she's considered, and I'm not sure she's even going as far to say they're aliens now. But look, there aren't a lot of options when you're looking at this. These things were in the sky, near Earth, not stars, and they were hovering around the planet. There is a coincidental connection to nuclear testing, she believes. I'll let her explain that when we try to get her in our next interview. That the nuclear testing may have attracted these things. It makes perfect sense that you were an advanced civilization way older than Earth that was way out there. You might want to keep an eye on us, especially when we start exploding atomic bombs on the planet. Got to worry, are we going to ruin the neighborhood?
Yeah, and that connection's not hard to make. You've made it. I've seen it in many of your stories that you've done over the years where, yes, it does happen around nuke sites. There seems to be a particular interest in UFOs and our nuclear sites and sites around the world, for that matter, yes?
I think it is a perfectly legitimate scientific mystery to pursue. Certainly, she's going about it being very careful. There are a lot of people who've put out alternate explanations, and she and her colleagues have dealt with them. The attacks on Dr. Villarreal have been terrible and personal and just way over the line, very, very out of character for what science should be, I think. But in recent months, there have been other papers written by other researchers not connected to her that have basically verified her work and said, hey, this is legit. These things are real.
All right, more on transient stars when we return. Okay, around that time, we're going back 74 years now, July of 1952, talking about the mysterious objects, UFOs, over the White House at that time. Nuclear testing, we put that connection together pretty well with sightings Were we doing nuclear testing around that time here in Southern Nevada? I know we had a lot of nuclear tests around here.
There were no nuclear tests in Nevada in July 1952, but there was a heck of a bunch of them. Operation Tumbler Snapper, I think is what it was called, from April to June of that year. A lot of above-ground nuclear tests, and certainly you would think that would attract attention elsewhere in the neighborhood. Robert Hastings, a friend and colleague of ours, wrote this book called UFOs and Nukes. Anyone interested in the UFO mystery needs to check that out if you don't already have it for your library. But he makes the case that all of those nuclear tests had UFO activity surrounding them, and he's talked to hundreds of people who worked at missile bases and here at the Nevada test site and were involved in nuclear programs around the world, and thinks the connection between UFOs and nukes is well established. Dr. Villarroel did not start down that road. I'm sure she probably had never even read that book at that time. She just thought, I'm going to look for evidence of possibly alien artifacts, and she found them. She's been attacked relentlessly. She knew it was coming, but she stood her ground. And now a lot of her colleagues have come to her aid and have said and buttressed the argument that she's making that these were not ours. Whatever's floating around near Earth, it's not an Earth-made satellite because we didn't have any in 1952. It's from somewhere else.
Well, explain then, okay, why the stars, or whatever they are missing from a plate one time and gone in the next. Yeah. You can look at, we see the Webb satellite, our Webb camera now. We see the one in Chile with these fantastic pictures of space, more detailed than I could ever imagine we would see in our lifetime, but they're consistent.
Yes. Yeah, they should be.
Aren't they?
And Dr. Villarroel believes that those objects that vanished are still up there. It's just that we can't see them. That the glare that we see off those metal objects is from our sun. And when they aren't lit up, it's because they're not in line for sunshine. She thinks they're still up there. And that we, meaning, the intelligence community, the military, people like Elon, they've got to know that those things are up there, unless maybe somebody called them home. Let's get them out of there, and something like that.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more from her in the future, and also on our website, that full interview that you did with her. We left some of it out for time, but it's a long, extensive interview with Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, and you can see it on our website at 8newsnow.com, Mystery Wire. Go there to see all of that, along with all of our shows, and be able to check them out. So, George, thank you very much.
Yeah, I should mention, we are going to get another interview with her. We recorded that one some months ago. We've never put it up, and she is courageous, and we applaud her for her courage in pursuing this. But we're going to get another interview and put that up in the next coming weeks.
Look forward to that. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye for now.